The night Daniel Carter gave away his last $5. He didn't think anyone would ever know. The wind cut through downtown Chicago like a blade, sharp and unforgiving. Snow clung to the edges of sidewalks, turning the streets into a cold, silent maze. Daniel pulled his worn jacket tighter around him as he stepped out of the grocery store. In his pocket were exactly $5.12. That was all he had left until his next paycheck, which was still 4 days away. 4 days of figuring it out. 4 days of skipping meals if he had to. He had just lost his second job 2 weeks earlier. Rent was due. His car insurance was overdue. And the refrigerator at home held little more than a half carton of eggs and some expired milk. He stared at the $5 bill in his hand. That money was supposed to buy him a loaf of bread and peanut butter. Enough to survive a few days. That's when he saw him. A man sat on the freezing sidewalk near the store entrance, wrapped in a thin blanket that barely covered his shoulders. His beard was grey and untrimmed, his hands red from the cold. A cardboard sign rested against his knees. Hungry. Anything helps. God bless. Daniel slowed down. He told himself not to stop. He told himself he couldn't afford to. But then the man coughed, a deep, painful cough that didn't sound like it belonged in a human chest. Daniel hesitated. "Sir," he said quietly. The homeless man looked up. His eyes weren't empty. They weren't broken. They were tired, but dignified. "Yes, son." Daniel swallowed. "Have you eaten today?" The man gave a small smile. "Not yet." Daniel looked at the $5 bill in his hand again. He imagined the peanut butter sandwich he wouldn't have tonight. He imagined going to bed hungry. Then he imagined this man doing the same. Without giving himself time to rethink it, Daniel crouched down and placed the bill into the man's shaking hands. "It's not much," Daniel said, "but maybe it'll help." The man stared at the money, then at Daniel. "You sure?" he asked gently. Daniel forced a smile. "Yeah, I'll be okay." The man's eyes glistened. "Son, you have no idea what this means." Daniel stood up, shoving his hands into his empty pockets before he could regret it. "It's just $5, he said. But somehow, it felt bigger than that. As he walked away into the freezing Chicago night, his stomach already aching with hunger, he had no idea that by morning, his face would be on every news channel in the city, and his life would never be the same. Daniel didn't sleep much that night. Hunger has a way of keeping you awake, not just physically, but mentally. Every unpaid bill echoed in his mind. Every past due notice felt louder in the silence of his small apartment. Around 2:17 a.m., he gave up trying to sleep and stared at the ceiling. He wondered if giving away that $5 had been irresponsible, maybe even stupid. He had no backup plan. Kindness doesn't pay rent, he thought bitterly. Eventually exhaustion won, and he drifted off just before sunrise. His phone started ringing at 7:03 a.m. He ignored it. It rang again. Then again. Then it started buzzing with notifications, non-stop. Daniel groaned and reached for it. 23 missed calls, dozens of text messages, and one notification that made his stomach drop. "You're on Channel 7 News." He shot upright in bed. What? Half asleep, he opened social media, and there he was. A blurry video filmed from inside the grocery store window showed him crouching beside the homeless man, handing over the $5 bill. The caption read, "Struggling man gives his last $5 to homeless stranger in freezing cold. Humanity still exists." The video already had over 2 million views. Daniel's heart pounded. Who filmed that? And why was it everywhere? He turned on the TV. And there it was. His face. On the morning news. The anchor spoke with warmth in her voice. In a time when headlines are filled with division, one Chicago man is reminding us what compassion looks like. Daniel felt his throat tighten. The reporter explained that the homeless man wasn't just anyone. His name was Thomas Whitaker. And according to the story, he wasn't homeless by accident. He was a Vietnam veteran who had fallen through the cracks of the system after losing his wife and battling medical debt. The station had interviewed Thomas earlier that morning. Daniel watched as Thomas looked into the camera and said something that made Daniel freeze. That young man didn't just give me $5, Thomas said. He gave me dignity, and I intend to find him. Daniel's heart skipped. Find him. Before he could process that, another knock echoed through his apartment door. Then another. He walked to the door cautiously. When he opened it, a camera crew stood in the hallway. Daniel Carter. A woman asked gently. Yes. We'd like to invite you to come with us. There's someone who wants to meet you. Daniel had no idea that the next few hours would change everything he thought he knew about that $5 bill. Daniel sat nervously in the back of the news van, staring out the window as Chicago passed by in a blur. He felt exposed, vulnerable. He hadn't asked for attention. He hadn't done anything heroic. He had just given $5. The van stopped outside a large downtown building. It wasn't a shelter. It wasn't a church. It was a law firm. Daniel blinked in confusion. Inside, cameras were already set up. Lights glowed brightly against polished marble floors. And standing near the center of the room was Thomas. But he looked different. Clean-shaven. Wearing a pressed navy suit. Standing straight. Confident. Daniel froze. Thomas walked toward him with a steady smile. Good morning, son. Daniel's mouth went dry. I don't understand. Thomas chuckled softly. I'm not homeless, he said. At least not anymore. The room went quiet. Thomas turned to the cameras. My name is Thomas Whitaker. I served this country for 14 years. After my wife passed, I created a private foundation to quietly test the character of communities across America. Daniel stared at him. Test. Thomas continued. I spend 1 week each year living on the streets. No announcements. No press. Just observing. Waiting. Daniel's heart raced. Waiting for what? He asked quietly. For someone who gives when it costs them something. The words hit Daniel hard. Thomas stepped closer. When you handed me that $5, I saw your hand shaking. I knew that wasn't spare change to you. That was sacrifice. Daniel swallowed. I just didn't want you to be hungry, he whispered. Thomas's voice softened. And because of that, I'd like to change your life. A lawyer stepped forward, holding documents. Thomas spoke clearly. My foundation has decided to pay off your rent for 1 year, clear your outstanding debts, and offer you a full-time position working with our Veterans Outreach Program, starting immediately. Daniel's knees nearly gave out. What? He breathed. The room erupted in applause. But that's not all, Thomas added. He turned toward the camera. And we are launching a national campaign called the $5 Movement. Every donation will go toward helping struggling families in Daniel's honor. Daniel felt tears burning his eyes. He hadn't given $5 expecting anything back. He had just acted in a moment. But sometimes, a moment becomes a movement. And this was only the beginning.